Hello everyone, this is Neil from Edureka and welcome to this SSRS tutorial session. So without wasting any time, let's move forward and look at today's agenda. Now we'll begin the session by first understanding why do we need data visualization and what exactly is data visualization, because these things contribute to the fundamentals of the need for SSRS. Then we'll talk about why SSRS and what exactly is Microsoft SQL Server Reporting Service. Okay, so therein you'll get an understanding as to why use SSRS over the other tools and what exactly it is. Moving on from there, we'll talk about the SQL Server Reporting Service Architecture, the reporting lifecycle, as well as we'll be seeing three major types of reports today's session. So we will be working on the practical aspect as to how you can build a report in Microsoft SQL Server. So I hope you guys are definitely looking forward toward this session. Can I get a quick confirmation in the chat box? Okay, I've got a confirmation from everyone. Seems everyone is excited for today's session. So without wasting any time, let's move forward and try to understand why do we need visualization. Now, if you look at the image to the right, this is the amount of data that gets generated every minute, that is in 60 seconds. Okay, and the data has been compared with respect 3 years. That is 2013, 2014 and 2015. Okay, although the amount of email that has been sent between 2014 and 15 remains almost same, but when you see with respect to different social media, you can see the variation that comes in. In 2013, there were close to about 80,000 posts, but again in 2014 it reached to 2.5, 2015 gave you 3.3 million as well. Similarly, there's a variation with respect to all social medias that you can see across. Now here again you can see with respect to Google, there's been almost double the amount of searches over the years. Instagram also is one of the most popular platform where it has a huge growth as well. Same time with respect to Twitter, WordPress and so forth. So all this data is with respect to a single second in these 3 years. Now you need to understand how much data gets generated from all these platforms. Okay, in today's world, we generate close to 2.5 quintillion bytes of data. That's a very huge set of data. But for you to understand what this data computes to or what it means, we need to get it into a visual format. And the logic behind that is quite simple. That is, our eyes perceive faster than what we can read and understand. Because again, it's mainly how the human body is being designed. Okay, to give you a rough idea, maybe the human eye can process something close to the speed of light. Okay, so that's roughly about 8 megabytes of data per second. But when we talk about reading, let's say if you're reading even 120 words, let's consider each word to be a single byte as well, then it's only about 120 bytes per second. So you see the difference here, don't you? So the main purpose of visualization is to help a human mind or any individual understand the processed data better. Now this is same with respect to all of us. If I just throw rough numbers at you, you would not be able to understand that. But let's say if I tell you the same detail, let's say it's the sales data where I give you different numbers over different quarters, then you may be still not quite sure. But if I show it you in a graphical representation, let's say I do it in a line chart or a bar chart, then you would get a complete insight. You'll understand which quarter has performed better, which quarter is gone down, where it has gone down, where you need to emphasize and better for. So I hope you guys are clear as to why we need visualization. Okay, that's great. So now that you've understood why we need visualization, let's go in depth and try to understand what exactly is data visualization. Data visualization basically is a visual access to the data that we have. Now, a well-designed graph, again, as we have talked about, it does not just refer to a graph. It could be a report, it could be a chart, and so forth. Any visual representation of a data is always the simplest as well as the most powerful form of representation. As an analyst, it's quite easy for me to understand numbers because I've been used to it. I've been working on numbers since I've started out. But at the same time, let's say if I need to give some information to my boss with respect to the business, then it is always best that I give him a visual chart. Now this is not just my scenario, this is something that all of you can relate to, I'm quite sure of. Okay, Henry agrees with me, so does James. Now it's great. Now again, this is something that everyone faces on a regular challenge. So again, data visualization is a visual representation of the data which makes it easy for you to understand and process it. Okay, but then your question should be is which are the data visualization tools in the market? Now talking about the data visualization tools, you have a lot of them present in the market at present. Okay, you have R, which mainly is used by analytics. You have ClickView and ClickSense, which is again a visualization tool. You have Power BI, which is a Microsoft tool as well, apart from your SQL Server. You have Microsoft SQL Server, and you also have Python, which is now being used to some extent to visualization, so as well as Tableau as such. Now again, these are all the available visualization tools in the market at present. But why do you need to go with SQL Server reporting service, that is Microsoft SQL Server? Now, talking about the major reasons as to why Microsoft SQL Server, these are some of the four major reasons. Firstly is because of the standard Microsoft development environment. Now, again, when I say Microsoft standard development environment, this is a standard environment through which your complete data is being processed. Now, to give you a simple understanding to those of you who are not familiar with Microsoft SQL Server, it basically consists of three tools. You have Microsoft SQL Server Integration Service, which deals with the integration of data from different sources. You have Microsoft SQL Server Analytical Service, which help you with the analysis of this data. And then you have Microsoft SQL Server Reporting Service. Now, if you are using the Microsoft Complete SQL Server product line, then there's a complete ensurety with respect to the quality as well as the standard of data that you're working with. Now again, this basically computes to a huge standardization that comes with respect to your overall process, which you may not see with respect to other tools. Now let's say you're using a different tool like Tableau or Power BI. Then you're just taking your data from a single source or multiple sources as per your requirement. But again, there may be certain quality checks that you need to perform. You need to check for inconsistencies and so forth. But again, when you're working on SQL Server Reporting Service, there's a standard process because you're already using the same data with respect to other services, and then you're working with it. So definitely this data would have met all these quality checks before you work with it. Okay. Now coming down to the second point, that is the mobile support. Now this is something that's quite majorly useful, because when we talk about how easy it is to publish a report and view it as well. So again, when you publish a report, it goes on to your browser. So anyone who wants to view it, even it's on the mobile application, all they need to do is just have the URL on which the report is published, and they can view the report. So thereby making it quite easy for you to share your reports, as well as quite easy for anyone to view it. Now, let's say my boss is in the US and he suddenly needs a specific report from my side for presenting to the clients. So all he has to tell me is, Neil, make this report from this data. Then once I have prepared this, I can publish it and just give him the details of the report. So then wherever he is, he can view it without any problems as such. So mobile support is a major factor with respect to any visualization tool. Now again, talking about another product of Microsoft, that is the Microsoft Power BI. Therein, if you download the application of Power BI onto your phone, then you can also view SQL Server reports there as well. So this is a major advantage that Microsoft has been providing. Okay, are you guys clear with the first 2 points? Okay, Aditya has a question here. Aditya is asking me, will Power BI replace SSRS? Okay, definitely I'm quite sure that all of you might have had this question. Now to those of you who are not familiar with what Power BI is, Power BI is Microsoft's latest tool for data visualization. Now Aditya, to answer your question, definitely not. Because again, when we talk about Microsoft's SSRS product, it comes as part of your Microsoft SQL Server package itself. So again, it's a complete package that you will be using to. I'm not saying that any data that you have created in SQL Server cannot be visualized using Power BI, but again, the purpose of Power BI is to help those who are working with Excel to display better visuals on that aspect. Okay, so there you have more rich and vibrant visualization that comes in. But again, SQL Server is mainly helpful for those who are working on Microsoft SQL Server. So again, it's completely on a different lines itself. Okay, I hope you get the understanding, because again, your SQL Server is a complete business intelligence tool that helps you achieve business intelligence. So you have your data processing, you have your data integration, as well as data visualization from a single package itself. But when you talk about Power BI, that is just a data visualization tool. Okay, so for that, again, if you, let's say, if you want to process a data and provide to it, that can be done. But as individually, it cannot be used for your business intelligence solution aspect. But again, definitely, as I have mentioned, you can feed your data from a Microsoft SQL to Power BI in case if you want. But if you ask me whether Power BI is going to replace Microsoft SQL Server tools, definitely not. Does that answer your question, Aditya? And this is to anyone else as well. Okay, that's great. Okay, now moving forward to the next 2 points. Now the third point is the cost factor. Now Cost is one thing that everybody is concerned about because now investment is something that everyone does. Now, as an organization, if you need to provide additional cost for your data visualization tools as well, then it becomes a hindrance because you're already paying for your data processing and integration tools, and then visualization adds on to it. Now, for those organizations that are just working on the visualization aspect, it's not a big deal. But let's say if you are working on the data processing industry, or on any industry that deals with data, then you definitely need to consider the cost factor. Okay, but with Microsoft SQL Server, once you've purchased the license for SQL Server, then you do not need to provide any additional amount for any of the other tools that comes with it, especially about reporting tools like SSRS as such. Now again, this is a major contributing factor, mainly because let's say if you take the other data visualization tool like Tableau. Now for Tableau, for a single user, that is for Tableau desktop, you need to pay about $1,000 a year. Now that's a huge amount. Let's say when you say $1,000 a year for an organization, maybe for one person or two-person, yes, it's possible. But let's say you have a team of analysts, and usually a team of analysts somewhere starts about 10 to 25 and keeps going on. Now for getting all of them licensed, it becomes a huge investment. So this is something that definitely helps you out, because using the cost factor of Microsoft, you can definitely go with SQL Server. And most organizations do that as well for those who are using the Microsoft standard environment. Okay. Finally comes your analytical aspect. Now using SSRS, you can perform advanced analytics as well as advanced visualization as well. Because once you've taken your data, you can also process and modify it, filter it, set certain conditions, and change the data as per your requirements before you go on to visualize this. So this also gives you the complete right to work around with respect to the data before you go on to visualize it. So all the freedom is in your hand to play with the data before you visualize it in itself. So this mainly means that you become the complete responsible person to work with that data. Okay, so I hope you guys are clear as to why SSRS over the other data visualization tools that we have talked about. Can I get a quick confirmation in the chat box? Okay, seems great. Everyone's given me a confirmation. I've got Henry says clear, so is John, Adam, Ajay, Rahul, Soumya. That's great. Now it's good to see that you guys are following me, but at any point, let's say there's something that you're not clear with, or something that just goes over your head as well. Okay, sometimes that tends to happen. So please stop me at that time, because I want you guys to have a clear-cut understanding. So at any point, if you're not clear with something, please make sure you put across your questions in the chat box. If you want me to repeat something, feel free to let me know and I'll be happy to do that as well. Okay, so let's say there's some other questions apart from what we're discussing, then definitely hold on to it. Towards the end of the session, I will be taking another Q&A round. So there we can discuss that. Does that sound fine to you guys? Great. So let's move forward to understand what exactly is Microsoft SQL Server Reporting Service. Now, SQL Server Reporting Service is basically a server-based reporting platform. Okay, again, every data that you're processing, you're working is stored on a server. Now, this could be present as part of your same system if you're configuring it to be part of that, or it could also be your organizational server where you're storing your data or processing it as well as working with it. Now, once your data is stored on a server, then it becomes easy for you to work with it, and then you can also take your data as you wish to create various reports and deliver them in different formats as per your requirements. Now, one customer may require it in a table format, the other may require it in a form of chart, and then so forth. So what kind of representation you choose is up to you, but definitely it is something that an analyst needs to think before you present the data. Now, there are certain situations where you get a request where you have to present your report in a specific format. But usually what happens is it's up to the analyst to represent it. But so you need to think well before you present any data in a specific format as to, will this report meet my requirement? Is this how I can represent it? Or is there any way in which if I represent it that people can understand it better? So it's all left in your hands to try and work around with it. Okay, Soumya is asking me, are only analysts who work with SQL Server reporting service? Definitely not, Soumya. Again, as I've told you, it's a Microsoft product that is available to anyone. So even if you're a person who's not working on the analyst side and you have some data that you want to represent, then definitely you can use SQL Server. This could be data present in an Excel file as well. But again, we know the capabilities of Excel in terms of visualization. So it's quite restricted and limited. But when you come to SQL Server reporting service, there are a lot of visualizations. We'll mainly be talking about these 6 different types of reports as well that you can create in SQL Server in the upcoming slides as well. But for now, you just need to understand that analysts are not the only people who use Microsoft SQL Server reporting service. It's something that anybody who has some technical knowledge can use around with. Does that answer your question, Soumya? Okay, that's great. Okay, Henry is asking me, does my data have to always be on a server? See, Henry, it's again mainly because of how organizations work. Your data, when it's on a server, again, the amount of data that you work around varies, okay? Let's say it's a single file, then definitely you can keep it on your system itself. But let's say it's a huge data set. This could be your organizational data. It could be retail data, sales data, and such. Now, these data are usually very huge, okay? So it makes more sense to store it on a server and remotely access it as per your requirements. So once when you need to create a report, all you need to do is connect to that server, take that data and create your reports as per your requirements. Okay, so that's the reason Microsoft mainly concentrates on server-based performance. Okay, again, in terms of security, in terms of processing, all this, Microsoft has taken a lot of consideration and created these tools. So definitely, since it's a Microsoft product, you can rest assured about the security aspect as well as its privacy aspect. Okay, so does that answer your question, Henry? Moving forward, let's see the SSRS architecture. Now, talking about the users who work with your reporting service, there are mainly 3 types of users. One is the report user, one is the report designer, and the third is a report manager. Okay, now this basically is with respect to the 3 cycles itself. If you see, report users are people who work with the data as well as want to have some insights with respect to that. So these are people who will be working mainly with respect to the first 2 tools of Microsoft SQL Server, that is your SSIS and SSAS. But at the same time, when they want to create a report on their data, then definitely they can create it using SSRS. But apart from that, you have your report designers. These are professionals who extensively work with respect to designing reports from the already existing data. Okay, and finally talking about a report manager, it's quite straightforward. That is, these are people who want to see the reports or people whom you need to deliver this report to. Okay, and now let's look at the architectural aspect of this. Okay, now you have your data sources present here. Now this could be a SQL server, it could be an Oracle database, it could be coming from a different database, that could be a Sebal database, it could be a Teradata database, your Salesforce database. So all that can be linked to your Microsoft SQL server. Once you've extracted your data, then your data retrieval process as well as rendering happens. Now again, rendering basically is the process where you're filtering your data, analyzing it and meeting your requirement. Once you've done that, then comes your report processing segment. Okay, report processing mainly deals with creation of reports, publishing of reports, modifying of existing reports and so forward. Okay, now, okay, this is a spelling mistake. It's XML web service interface. Basically, when you're publishing a report, that goes to the web browser. So it is mainly processed by a web service interface. So that is something that makes it quite easy for anyone to view it as well. Now apart from that, you have your security and scheduling and delivery segment that comes as part of your SQL server. Okay, so these are individual services that run with respect to your SQL server always. Now again, when you're delivering your report, this could be in terms of a HTML file, it could be an XML file, it could be a PDF file, even any custom files that you want to require. Apart from that, you can also share it via emails, you can share it as files and any other custom method as per your requirement as well. So I hope you guys have got a simple idea with respect to the reporting service architecture. Okay, that's great to see that you guys are clear with this. It's a quite simple representation, so I hope you guys have understood it well. Okay, now this is not very important as such, but this is just to give you an idea of how things work out. Okay, now moving forward, let's try to understand the reporting life cycle, because it's always important that there's a life cycle or a standard process that you follow while you're creating and working with reports. Okay, now every organization that actually works with respect to SQL Server follows the 3 phases of reporting lifecycle. The first is authoring, second is management, and third is delivery. So we'll talk about each one of them one by one. Now first comes authoring. Okay, now in this phase, report authors define the layout and the source of the data. Okay, now the syntax that you use in report is known as report definition language. Okay, it's basically an XML defined in the industry for defining reports and working with them. Okay, so it's standard across there. Now, when you talk about the tools that you'll be using for authoring, this mainly deals with your SQL Server Business Intelligence Development Studio and your report builder application. Okay, so these are tools that you'll mainly be working while in the authoring phase. Okay, then comes your management phase. Now, this mainly involves managing the published reports which are like at presently part of the web service. Okay, so reports which are presently on the web interface, the role-based security models that you need to create. So again, when you talk about role-based security models, this mainly is to identify who needs to view the report, who needs to have access to modify it, who needs to have access to share it, and so forth. Okay, and also another thing you need to consider while in the management phase is to the control over the execution, as in when the report should get that data. Now, all these reports can get updated on a real-time basis as well. So they need to have a real-time update with respect to that data as well. Now, again, every database from which this data is being taken, database, data warehouse, or a cube, any source, again, they get updated on a regular basis. Now, we all know that because it seems quite trivial to work with static data. And when you're working with dynamic data, you need to define when the update should happen. This could be every day, this could be within a few hours. Again, all this is based on how your data is being processed, how often are you gathering data, and all that for. So all that needs to be considered in the management phase of the lifecycle. Then comes your delivery section. Now in delivery report, you need to understand when the reports need to be delivered to the customers, either on their demand or based on a specific event. Let's say you've completed a phase of your project and you want to give a specific report to your customers. Then you can do that as well. Or let's say every quarter you need to give a report to your customer based on the sales and transactions that you've done for them. Then you can do that as well. Or your customer is considering of a merge, then he suddenly comes and requests you to give me a report based on all that data. So all that is something that basically is done. Okay. Now there's an interesting feature of subscription which actually allows you for automated report delivery. Okay, so at every fixed interval you can make sure that a report gets delivered. Apart from that, you can again come to the privacy part where you can work with URL access, web service access. Even the report view controller is something that helps you with respect to the delivery cycle. Now, don't worry about these key terms if you're not quite clear on. We'll be going on the advanced part of this in the next session. But this is just an introductory session to give you a complete insight with respect to this. So I hope you guys have got a simple understanding with respect to the three phases of the reporting lifecycle. As long as you have simple understanding of what this does, it's more than enough. So I hope at least you guys can give me a gist of what these three phases are. Please put it across in the chat box. Okay, just one line answer what these three phases are and what you have understood. Okay, so it's good to see that you guys have understood it. I'm actually quite frankly proud of all of you guys because I never really expected every one of you to understand this. But again, it's quite great to have such a good class that actually listens to things. Okay, so again, any point you're not clear with, we'll discuss it after the session. Great. So moving forward, let's look at the various types of report that you can create in Microsoft SQL Server. Okay, there are mainly 6 types of report that you will be working on in Microsoft SQL Server reporting service. Now, talking about the first type of report, that is tablets report. Now, your tablets report is quite similar to your normal table report itself. So again, when we talk about a table report, it basically is representation of your data in form of a normal table. Now, this usually is a single data source table that you'll be representing it with. So again, this is quite similar to how you see your data in Excel. So I hope you guys have got a simple idea of how that works out. Okay, wherein you have individual columns that are for specific values, and again each row is to give you the unique input to that value. Okay, now the second type of report, that is the matrix report. Now this is something that is quite interesting. Your matrix is also quite similar to your table itself, but here what happens is you will be working with more than a single value, wherein both your column and row pertain to specific data. Now, in terms of sales, let's say you want to understand the number of sales for a specific product and you want to identify that with respect to different regions as well. Then what you do is you go with the matrix report rather than a tablets report. Okay, so are you guys clear with respect to the difference between matrix and tablets? Okay, that's great. Now comes your chart report. Now chart basically is a collection of different kinds of your visuals. You have bar representation, you have pie chart representation, you have line representation, and so forth. So all your different kinds of graphical representation comes under chart representation. Okay, so here basically what you're going to do is, depending on the type of data that you have, then you're going to choose between these types of visuals and then work with it. Now, talking about your bar chart, a bar chart basically displays series as set of horizontal bars. And it's also the only kind of data chart that displays your data in horizontal format. Okay, now depending on a specific value that you're working with, you choose between bar chart. Again, when you talk about pie chart here, pie chart basically is used to display proportions of whole. Now, let's say you want to understand the number of male to female ratio, then you can use a pie chart itself here. Okay, or it could be with respect to different categories of your products that are sold. So again, this is something that is relative parts of a whole. So from your overall sales, you want to understand which category of product has sold how much. So in such cases, what you can do is you can use a pie chart. Okay, and then line is something that is quite straightforward. Line basically is a series that is basically represented as set of points which are connected to a single line. Okay, now line basically is used for evaluating a data over a continuous period of time. So again, your sales over a fixed time, your number of employees over a fixed time, and so forth. Okay, so then comes your fourth type of report, that is a sub report. Now sub report is something that's quite interesting. Sub report basically is a report itself, but it is usually embedded inside another report. Okay, now this report is usually independent and it can have its own data set if you require it to have, or it can also be related to the same data that you're working with. Now let's say you're working with the overall sales, but again you want to have a sub report that tells you sales in different regions. So you can do that using sub reports here. So you'll have one major report that talks about your overall sales and multiple sub reports that talk about sales in different regions. Okay. Okay, now comes your drill down and drill through report. These reports are basically chosen based on how you process your data. Okay, now a drill down report basically is based on the relationship, where you talk about the general relationship from the top and you go down to the sub levels. Drill through is on a slightly different operation where you drill through the individual instances of the data. Okay, so I hope you guys are clear with respect to the different types of reports that you can create in SSRS. Okay, seems like all of you are clear. So what we'll be doing is we'll be creating 3 different reports as part of today's session. We'll start off by Tablex report. Okay, so first thing what you need to do is you need to launch your Microsoft Visual Studio Data Tools. So this is the tool that you'll be using for your reports. So this is what your Visual Studio Data Tool looks like. So first start by creating a new project. Now here it's going to be a reporting type project. So select the reporting service option here and reporting server project. Now first you need to rename this. Let's call it my first report. Okay, and then just click on OK. So you would be getting this empty workspace here. Okay, so to the right you have your solution explorer, to your left you have server connections, and to your bottom is your output field. So now let's begin by first importing a data source. So for that, just right click on the folder here and go to add new data source option. So here first you need to name your data source. So let me call it my data source. And it is of a type Microsoft SQL Server, because what I'm doing is I'm going to extract a table that's present in my SQL Server and then start creating the visual report. So what I'm going to do is let the type be Microsoft SQL Server, and then connection string needs to be modified. Click on edit. So your server name has to be selected here. Now this may take some time because it needs to check out all the possible server connections, and once it's done loading you can find the name of your server. So name of my server is Edureka 42, and then I need to select the database. So here are all the complete databases that are available to me. So I want to take a table from Edureka database, so just click on OK. So with that I have created a new data source. Now what I need to do is I need to create a data set from this data source. Now I don't want to work with all the tables present in my data source, I just want to work with some of them. So for that I'm going to create a shared data set. So let's begin by creating a new data set. So right click and add data set option here. Now I'll call this customers, Now data source remains my data source, and here let's say select star from dbo.customer. Now I already have a customer table present in my database and I'm sharing the same with all of you. So make sure you import it to your database as well and work with it. Okay, so once you click on OK, you can see your data source also gets included here. Okay, so now comes the third phase where we're going to create our report. So go to add report. So this basically is a report wizard. Now first thing what you need to do is specify the data source. So now what we'll be doing is we'll be adding a report here as well. So for that, just right click and go to add option, not add new report, and click on new item. So here you have to choose between report wizard, report, data source and data set. So we want a report. So just click on add. So this is what your report workspace looks like. Now to this you need to add the type of visual that you want. So let me begin by creating a new table here itself. So right click and you have option of insert. So first thing I'll insert is a table here. Okay, so this is my table. So I'll just expand it a little bit and then to this I can add data. Okay, so this data has been set as customer. So what I'll do is I'll select customer ID here. Same thing here, what I'll do is let me set customer name here. Then let me add the city. And if you want to add a new column, insert column to the right or left as per your requirement. I'll add one to the right and here let me give the value of country. Okay, let me just stretch all this a little more so that it's set in correctly. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the preview tab. Now the point of going to the preview tab is that it shows me how my report looks before I publish it. So this is how my report is looking like. So customer name, customer ID, city and country. So let me just bold all this and I'll add some color, let's say red. Now if I go to the preview tab, so you can see these fields have been modified, they've been bolded and their color has been changed to red. Now again, I'll just center align this. Now again, if you want to give a border to your whole table itself, so select all and then go to the border tab and let's say outside border. Then if you go to the preview tab, then you can see a complete border has been added to this table. Okay, so again, if you want to make it even thicker, then you can go back to your border. You can again select everything and then go in the borders option here, you can change the thickness here. So if I just type it, if I just change it to 2 points, okay, then in the preview tab, you can see the thickness has slightly changed. Okay, so it's not very huge, but it's minor. And all the details of the customers have been added here. So again, it becomes a quite simple report. But again, the purpose of this is so that you can understand how it looks like. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to simultaneously try this out as well. Once you've done this, then we'll go on to the next report type, that is matrix. So please go on and try this report. In case any of you are facing any challenges, let me know right away so that we can work around with it. So it's great that all of you have created your first report, that is Tablix report, and even Henry had a problem, so we all helped him out. So that's great to see. Now going back to our presentation, okay, so we've seen how to create a simple Tablix report. Okay, now again, if you want to go a little more advanced report type, then you come with the matrix report where you work with different sets of data grouped together. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create a matrix report here. So let me just delete this table. So you can select it and then just press delete. Okay, so this has removed my table from here. If you go to preview, you can see it's completely empty here. So let's begin by adding a new matrix. So go to insert option and go to matrix tab. Now here what I'm going to do is, let's say for my rows, I'm going to see city, and my columns, what I'll do is I'll add the customer names. So this will tell me in which city which customer is present. Okay, so you can see here the different cities along with that correspondingly the details of the customers. Now here what I'll do is I want to add a new value. So I want to add the country as well which they come from. So what I'll do is I'll just drag country. You can either add it here when the blue option is highlighted, or I can add it below here as well. Now what I want to do is I'll add it in country. Okay, and then what I'll do is I'll group them based on the city. Okay, now if you go to preview here, so you can see in Afghan, these are the cities that are present and they are being grouped together with respect to the country from which they're coming. Now this is a rough data, so don't go by the actual values that are present in the columns. But again, this is to just give you an idea. So for a specific country, okay, how you can see the variations. That is all the cities as well as details of the customers from those cities. Okay, they are correspondingly grouped here. So this is how a matrix table looks like. So again, I hope you guys have got a simple understanding how it works. Now this is something that comes into essence again when you're working with data that is being gathered over a period of time. So something that will help you in classification as well as grouping. In such situations, you can use a matrix report. Okay, are you guys clear with respect to the matrix report? Okay, good. So I want you to try the matrix report as well. And meanwhile, I'll just delete this and we'll start with the next report. But please go ahead and try the matrix report. In case any one of you face a trouble, let me know. Again, this is applicable to you, Henry. In case if you face a trouble, let me know so that we can work it out. I don't want you to be stuck at some point and not be clear about something. Okay, that's good. Great. The last type of report that we'll be seeing is the chart report. Now, chart report basically helps you summarize your data in different kinds of chart. So for us, what we'll be doing is we'll be working with a new table. So for that, let me just add a new data source. Now here in the shared report, I'll add one more data source one. Now here what I need to do is I need to bring in my employees table. Now how do I do that again? Who can guess the query for this? Okay, it's select staff from human resource dot employees. Okay, so just click on OK. So I'll just need to modify this. Wait, I'll call it employees first. So okay, we're going to import the employees table from the human resource database. Okay, click on OK. Now what I'll do is I'll insert, let's say, a pie chart. Now again, charts, you have different options. You have bar charts, you have line charts, you have pie chart, pyramid, and so forth. You even have column charts present here. Then again, let's say you want area based graphs, so you can use that. For specific ranges, you have range graphs, you have stock, you have candlestick. Okay, and then you have scatter plots, polar plots, and so forth. So what I'll do is I'll just do a pie chart here. And I'll import my employee set here. Okay, so from my employee set, what I need is, now to this value, all I'll add is gender. Now in the preview, let's check this out. Okay, so this is my pie chart. To this, what I'll do is I'll add gender. Okay, but gender has to come in category groups. So always remember that. That is important here. Okay, so if you just scroll down a bit, group by gender, and if you preview it, there's no value present here because the value is not going to the rows. So also add to the rows here as gender as well. Okay, now what you'll do is just check the preview. So here you can get the male to female ratio. Now if you want to add a little more details to it, that is, let's say you want to add labeling to it. Okay, then what you can do is show data labels. Once you do that, you can see the number. Okay, of my 290 employees, 206 are male, 84 are female as well. Okay, so again if you want to add some effect, 3D effects, that can also be done. Enable 3D effects. So this is basically giving a 3D incline to the same, so you can see how it is variated here. So earlier when without the 3D effect, let me just show you that. So wait, what I'll do is I'll just copy the same. So again, you can see you can press a Control C and Control V to copy paste a graph. Okay, so what I'll do is for the first one, I'll not add a 3D effect, and then let's see both. So this is without 3D effect and this is with 3D effect. So again, there's a lot you can play around with. Now again, if you go back to the design plane and if you want to insert, now in charts option, you have a lot of data charts that you can prepare and work with. Okay, so I want you guys to try two of them. Okay, I already shared the data set with you. So now this is basically a bar chart. Okay, now again, any kind of chart that you guys are creating, okay, make sure there is some purpose that you're creating with. as to be clear why you're creating this specific chart. Now I used the pie chart for me because I had only two values, male and female. Okay, so ratio between them I wanted to change. Now again, let's say if I want to change with, I want to see, I'll change the second chart to, I'll remove this and I'll add a new value, that is marital status. Okay, just come down, just change this as well. Okay, now we'll see the preview here. Okay, now you're getting the error because this chart is not giving any values. Now here you can see the ratio has been changed from married and single. Okay, it's almost a 50-50 ratio. So what we need to do, we need to add labels to this. Again, click on your values option and show data labels. In preview you can see the ratio as well. Now again, all these are parts of a whole. Now what I want you to do is, I have shared the data set with you. I want you to figure out and create one line chart and one bar chart. Okay, so please go ahead and try that out as well, and then we'll be open to questions. So with that, we come to an end of this session. So in case if any of you do have a question, please remain. For the others of you, thank you and hope you have a great weekend.
I hope you enjoyed listening to this video. Please be kind enough to like it, and you can comment any of your doubts and queries, and we will reply to them at the earliest. Do look out for more videos in our playlist and subscribe to our Edureka channel to learn more. Happy learning!